having me. I hope that English won't scare people away from the room. My name is Stoyan Atipov, and my last name actually comes from Ottoman times in my country, and it means storyteller. So it actually runs in my family. I tell stories. We all do. This is our job as business analysts, product owners, product managers, whatever you call yourself. And part of being good at telling stories is also knowing when somebody is telling you a story to tell. So this is the story of agility. And we all know how it started. Some really smart people got together by accident, drank some beers, talked some smart stuff, and came up with agility. Cool, but bullshit. Actually, the 50 most prominent public speakers were approached by a small group to come up with a brand that would reinforce their personal brands without spending that much money. Because public speaking pays well. So they eventually got together, only 15 of them. Most of them told them to piss off. And this is how the Agile Manifesto came to be. And it's a good idea, but it's nothing new. So, since it's just a actually, how many of you have ever seen the Agile Manifesto? Not the actual paper, but have you gone to agilemanifesto.com ever? Yeah, good. How many of you can actually list those by memory? Don't look at me. Just you? Okay, it's only natural. So, as I said, it's an empty brand. It was started as an empty brand, but it actually had some really good ideas. It summarized what humanity has been working on for more than a century. And other smart people also recognized this. So they started bringing in their own smart work under the brand of Agile. Test-driven development, Scrum, extreme programming, Kanban. These were started in the 80s and in the 90s, but in the 2000s they were labeled as Agile. Now when somebody asks you what Agile is, you would say most probably Scrum or Kanban. It's not. These things were brought in later. Then people realized, you know, there is money in this. So they started building their own brands and their own products on top of this. That's how we got safe, less, Scrum at scale, disciplined Agile. Actually, who has ever heard of disciplined Agile? Good. You suffered? Yeah, I know, but PMI bought the intellectual rights to this. So this would become fashionable again. Everybody thought it's dead. Anyways, so more and more brands, and we as a collective body of professionals started drifting away from those things, because this is what agility is. It's not frameworks, it's not brands, it's not certifications, but it's an actual mindset, a collection of principles, a collection of values. Do you know how many principles are there in Agile? 12. Good for you. Obviously you read the manifesto. Okay. So I would ask you to pay some attention to this slide. So what does it say? Individuals over processes. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Working with customers instead of negotiating a contract. Responding to change over following a plan. So, to put this in short, be nice, focus on the person, forget the documentation, get shit done. Simple. Okay, but then we got all this. So now you have to be Scrum certified, but this is Scrum or Scrum Alliance. Then what's the difference between a business analyst and a product owner? Then product manager, I'm on the product management stage. But what a product manager is, because only those guys talk about product managers. There is no product manager anywhere else. So, a lot of stories, intertwined stories, a lot of marketing, but where's the substance? So, let's take a step back. This is a pretty hazy history lesson. When you look at it from a historical perspective, you always get some major technological revolution that changes the rules of the game. Then you have a cultural revolution, and then you have a war that instills the cultural revolution as the new norm. At first we had the industrial revolution, but with the introduction of machine tools. Then capitalism and manufacturing became the new standard. Property was no longer just land, it was means of production, it was machines. And now, the people who had property were not only the nobility, but actual entrepreneurs. So the problem of management became widely relevant. It wasn't no longer a matter that only the king would care about, but a matter that everybody trying to start their own business would care about. This changed things a lot and brought to the spring of nations, all the Republican revolutions across Europe in the mid-19th century. Then we got the steam engine and electricity. And people realized, you know what? It's not just about means of production, but about information as well. So we got the First World War, and the new societal organization became the norm. This is when management science first appeared. Henry Fayol, Winslow Taylor, these were the forefathers of what we do. What's interesting is that in those first days, they set two ways of thinking. Process-centric thinking, and human-centric thinking. Process-centric, what Taylor says was, screw the human, he's just a consumable. So we can consume humans. What matters is the process. And this is what happened in the factories in the early 20th century. And this was all fine and dandy, it worked perfectly well until the Second World War. Then, we had to send a lot of soldiers on the front. And those soldiers were, okay, probably not women, probably not black. So we were sending white people on the front. But somebody had to take their place in the factory now. So we had to bring in colored and women into the factories. So command and control, or process-centric, was no longer working because those people were unqualified. Nobody ever expected those people to work in the factory, so nobody gave them any education and qualification. This is the birth of adaptive management. Before that, have you ever heard of the efficiency movement? It was the agile movement of the early 20th century. It was as popular as agile, and it was directly opposite to agile as a mindset. So process-centric thinking was as famous as agile is today, as human-centric thinking is today. So, World War II brought into existence the first adaptive management program that was called training within industry. It was on-the-job training for unqualified staff that filled up jobs in the factories. Then the first management consultant came to be, Peter Drucker. That's good. But the war ended. And it destroyed his business because he was selling training within industry. So he just looked around and said, okay, where I can take this knowledge? So his main customer was the US government and the US Navy. So at some point, he said, okay guys, who are you willing to pay me to train? You know, we leveled the country. It's called Japan, or at least it was called Japan. Now it's a wasteland, but we're trying to rebuild it. So why don't you go there? This is how Kaizen appeared. You had to put a Japanese brand on an old story. and tell it to a new audience. So this is what he did. This is what he did for 30 years. But then the brand wore off. So we came up with total quality management. Then a smart fellow by the name of Bill from Alcatel came up with a really good idea of putting modern statistics into practical use. So this is how Six Sigma appeared. Then, in 1994, there was a book called The Machine That Changed the World. So this is how the brand Lean appeared. And all of these things are exactly the same: adaptive management practices. So, again, the adaptive management practices, or human-centric practices, were rebranded again under agile. So, today, agility is talking about VUCA. Do you know any idea what VUCA is? Good. This is the most modern term in agility. It would be volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Big words. It means that the world is crazy and we have to find our way around it. And what's weird? VUCA is being talked about whenever we talk about business analysis, product ownership, or product management. So they're all dealing with this. When we're talking about complexity, there is this thing. It's called the Synergy Framework. The author is a really grumpy old sock by the name of Dave Snowden, who's really smart. So, what he says is that you have different levels of complexity. So you have to, when you face a problem, first you have to evaluate where does it fall, and then bring it down in complexity. Decompose the problem. Again, product owners, product managers, business analysts, we all do this. And okay, what he says is that you first start with disorder. It's a mess, everything's on fire, and you're just trying to survive. Then, if you're lucky, you get to complex. Then, where you have to just probe, sense, respond. So these are his behavior frameworks for every level of complexity. Meaning that you just have to try stuff with low engagement, build fast, fail fast. Then, as you gain knowledge and understanding of the problem, you go to complicated. We have to actually start gathering data, gathering information, analyze it, and build our responses not on trial and failure. Then we go further into our familiarity with the topic. And then we can experiment. We can come up with a hypothesis, try it, see if it fails, see if we can sustain it, and then adjust. And in the end, when we know everything, we just have to, okay, oh, I know this problem. This is the best practice for it. This is how you should solve it. We have a prepared process for this, so we just handle it. It was called the obvious, now it's called clear. It doesn't matter, same thing. Okay, so how many of you are product managers as a job title? Good. Just one? Can you sell? Can you go to the field with a customer and sell him your product? Yeah. Good. You're a good product manager then. Through this, okay, product managers deal with the market. We are half salespeople. We are trying to find what our market would buy, what our market is willing to pay for. So, at first, our market is not defined. Because when I say, okay, this is my new product, and I'm going to sell it to, I don't know. So we start iterating. This is the life cycle of product. Anyone read the Lean Startup? good. Well, this was defined there. It's a really nice book. Check it out, it's short. So, what does it say? You have somebody with a problem. Everybody has problems, but you don't care about them. You care only for those problems that he's willing to pay for to get away. So, we recognize that some people have a problem big enough so that they're willing to pay. Then we start thinking, okay, how does the solution look for this guy? Like, what's a solution for this problem? We have different tools for this, and we start hypothesizing, okay, maybe this would be recognized as a solution. We go to a potential customer. First, we have to identify our market and their problem. When this is done, bring them an idea for a solution. Validate, check if they agree, if they feel like they're willing to pay for this. If probably they won't be at first, so you go back to the drawing board. You iterate. At some point, you finally manage to define the solution. Now you have to figure out how to monetize that solution. Most of you are my age, more or less, so you remember that Twitter had big problems with monetization because they recognized that there is a problem on the market and they brought in a solution, but they didn't know how to monetize on this. They didn't know how to make profit. So this is where they failed. Eventually, they had to compromise with their original business idea so they could actually make profit, which, how many of you use Twitter nowadays? Exactly, only Trump. So it's a good idea to go in that cycle, not in steps, but in entire circles. So when you have a solution, and you have that, okay, you know the problem, you have an idea what the solution would be, and then maybe you have an idea how to monetize it. Then bring it to the customer. Tell them, okay, I'm willing to do this for you, it would help you this way, and it would cost you that much. So does it sound like a fair deal? If you, at first, again, you'll get no. When you get yes, then you're ready for the next cycle. Okay, now I have a rough idea what those guys are willing to pay for and what their understanding is. So go around the cycle again. Try defining some value streams. You have a solution, but what are the portions of the solution that your customer is recognizing as more important than the others? What are the features of your product that he likes better than the others? What attracts him in your billing model and what repulses him? And you keep turning in that cycle over and over again until you get a clear idea of what you have to build. This is when you actually involve any technical professionals. So far, it's just salespeople and product managers. You don't involve technical professionals until this point. Now you have a clear idea, so you start defining epics, capabilities, features, a bunch of really, really hazy keywords that nobody uses it the same way. But more or less, these are high-level ideas of what the solution should do. That's it. Then you turn them into actual user stories, actual requirements. I need, as this role, I need to do this so that I can get this value. Then you bring them down even further. To do this story, I need a button here, and I need a drop down there. Anyone outside of IT? Okay. This thing? Management science started in the manufacturing industry, moved into heavy machine building and mines. Then it went to operations and telecoms. Now it's in IT. So when we're talking about IT management, we're talking about forefront management science. This is how companies all around the world will be managed in 10 to 20 years. Not only IT companies, every company. So this cycle, it works not only for software products. With this, I've done foods. I have a few food products on the market. I have electronics. I've done services. I have a private hospital I consulted. So this is how we came up with their service line, with their product line, and so on. So this can be used outside of IT. Okay. Here we were talking about complexity. And we said, okay, complexity gets reduced with this cycle. And every step, like every arrow there, is one of those yellow words. This is where complexity comes from. It comes from outside, it comes from within. What defines anyone IAB certified, CBAPs, CCAs? You? Okay. They're a bunch of nice guys with their standards and certifications. I also encourage you to read and then define that the context of a solution is defined by people, documents, systems, processes, and events. So these are the 5 elements of the context, and they all generate complexity when you're developing a solution. But also you're developing this solution for a certain market, and this market has its own context. So these are all the driving forces from the outside. When you're defining a business model, you have to first define your environment. So what different complexity cases and problems they bring? So, anyone ever worked with blockchain? Good. So you know that still there is no clear legislation that's universal everywhere. So you don't know the rules. The environment has no defined rules. This is a common problem when you're working on an innovative product. Currently I'm working with artificial intelligence, and legally I'm not restricted in any ways to transfer data, use data, as long as I use it just to train my model, which is stupid. And a lot of companies are pretty happy with this. But it is the absence of laws and absence of rules, clear rules. And if I don't do this, my competitors would. So this is a problem, because instead of focusing on building a good product that helps people, they focus on handling legal matters. Then maybe we don't have the skill needed to build a product inside our team. This is another problem. You start working on something and then something pops up, and you don't have the person on your team to handle it. So what do? Well, you gotta hire a consultant. You send one of your people for training. Any other ideas? Come on, people, help me out here.
Just like outsource, like external services.
That's a good idea, even though this is pretty expensive and long-term for a single task, but yeah, why not? Okay, then you have certain areas where you're not allowed to make a mistake. So this try fast, fail fast, not working. When you're building a spaceship, you saw what happened to Elon Musk last week. His spaceship just blew up. That's not a good approach, especially when you have people there. When you're building medical equipment, you cannot fail fast. You cannot fail at all. So certain markets, certain products don't allow you to fail. Then you have to start actually small. You have to really work on the increment. You have to start with the hypothesis, test it, fail there. Fail until you get the right hypothesis. Then you move to a second one, to the third one. You generate knowledge, you generate practical experience. Then you start building prototypes. You fail with those as well. Then you have something that actually works. You throw it away and build it from scratch. And now you start incrementing on that prototype. So it's not just throwaway prototypes, but incremental prototypes now. At some point, you feel confident enough that your prototype is actually a product. If you're lucky enough, you still have the budget to throw that away, start from scratch, write it properly, do it properly. And then you can take this to authorities, because usually those fields are pretty well regulated. So it's a clusterfuck when you have no tolerance for error and no clear rules. Because then you just release something on the market and you hope that you did your best and it won't fail. Because when your product hurts somebody, it feels terrible. Okay, then in corporate environment, another complexity. Fixed vendors, predefined vendors. Anyone here ever chose the cloud platform that their product would be developed on? Or anyone ever chose if the company should buy another smaller company, like a startup or something, that has a technology that your product needs, and it would be cheaper to buy it than to actually develop it yourself? Exactly. Usually, this comes from higher levels. And sometimes on higher levels, decisions are not technically justified. They're financially or market justified or whatever, but they seem stupid from technical viewpoint. Then, okay, another problem that you might face. You have an awesome product and you worked really hard. You got a great idea, you validated it with the market, you came with a clear definition of your solution, you had this awesome team that quickly moved through iterations and came up with something that you could actually sell, something that you could go to the market and ask for money in exchange of it. And then you realize there are more people already there. Okay, what do? There is obviously a golden, a silver, and bronze medal, but there is no prize for the fall, or any of the other competitors. But you still have to survive because you spent all those money, and you have to go back to your boss and tell him, okay, you gave me those really big numbers, I spent them all, we have this really awesome product, but we cannot return the investment. Well, improvise, pivot, try to change your product, try to find another audience that is willing to buy your product or something similar. Try to address that new audience. Change your marketing strategy for that audience. Change the actual product. Maybe you have to differentiate. So forget all the core features that all your competitors are already providing. Come up with an exciter. Your product may be crap, your product may be average at best, but if you put something really fancy, now it's innovative. We have a car, and it's really expensive, doesn't go so well, breaks often, put artificial intelligence in it, make it drive on its own. Now you have a new product. What else can you do there? What would you do there? Sorry? What would you do when your competitors went to market before you?
Evolution your product.
Sorry?
Evolution your product.
Publish my product?
Yeah. Evolution.
Evolve. Oh yeah, okay.
E-V-O-L-U-T-I-O-N.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Using gap analysis or, I don't know, fish analysis.
Yeah, that would work. So try to find how to make it better. But this requires money and time. Do we have it?
Well, gap analysis doesn't cost that much money at time.
Yeah, but
Well,
implementing...
fishbone analysis, it's like very
Okay.
simple.
But actually, this analysis will give you an idea, okay, this is wrong with my product, and now I have to improve it. So this costs time and money.
Well, there are different strategies of approaching it. You can be the leader, you can be the follower, in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So following strategy isn't that bad.
Okay. Now we're talking.
And if you don't have money, don't approach it with guerrilla strategy.
Great.
Be a goopy company. So
Also, exactly, this is what I'm talking about. Make do. Find a way to actually differentiate yourself. Okay, you don't have the money to build an exciter. Maybe people came before you. Okay, figure out how you can reduce your costs. Sell your product for cheaper, or give certain features that others don't deliver so well. Or do as Microsoft. Market that you have all the features, sell the product, get the customer to realize half of them are not working, but you keep selling because you have a new version. You know that the mice always hopes that right after the next corner there is cheese, and this is also a sales strategy. You deliver crap, but you promise that your next version will be better, and you deliver new versions often. So, my favorite complexity problem. We don't have money. Like, we ran out of budget, okay, but they still want us to deliver something. They want us to pack up whatever we have and bring it to the market, no matter that this is still a prototype. What do you do then? What would you do? Yeah, you.
Per subscription.
Oh, make it a subscription service?
Per subscription. But try to propose to get the
Press the button there.
try to get the customers before you have the working product, like for example to promise them to provide the product
Good.
with discount.
That's project management thinking right there. Okay, maybe we have crap, but it's crap enough for marketing. So we start selling, even though we don't have the product yet. Then we generate some profit, then we finish the product and deliver. Good. That's how Kickstarter works. Okay, have you ever worked on something so innovative that nobody has idea what you're talking about? Change the world, because this is what all startups say. We will change the world. Okay, you are doing something that actually changes it. It has nothing to do with the old. And then nobody understands what you're selling. Nobody's willing to pay. Well, what you do then? Take smaller steps. Don't rush it. Try to implement your product. But not in terms of features, but in terms of communication. Let's say, okay, one of my products, it's powdered superfood. It's a company I consulted 3 years ago, and back at that time, nobody in Europe knew what powdered superfoods are. They were popular in Asia, but nobody in Europe would eat powder because it tastes terribly. So, what did we do? Well, it's made of fruits and vegetables. So we told them, okay, these are dehydrated fruits and vegetables that are easier to carry around, easier to store, and can be consumed in those vegan ways. Oh, vegan, that's a good keyword. Put a hefty price tag on it. Now it's really popular in Germany and Romania. So try to bring the communication of your product closer to the customer. Nobody knew what powdered food is, but everybody knew what dehydrated food is. Okay. Since I'm running out of time, I want to leave you with this. As you can see, complexity has iterative ways. There are iterative ways to reduce complexity. It's nothing wild. It's not magic. It's analysis. You have to take one step at a time. There are many problems, not just those. These are just samples that I wanted to use to get the conversation starting. And you will find many more. And as product managers, product owners, business analysts, no matter how they call you, it's all the same. There is a problem and you're the solution. So this is what you get paid for, and if you have the mindset to adapt, to help people solve the problem somebody has, then you always have money, and you always have a good job. Thank you.
We talked about AI somehow doesn't deal with regulations, right? Could you tell more about it?
Okay. Back in the early days of blockchain technology, way before Bitcoin, you know that these are practical financial tools. So they can be used both as futures or derivative financial tools or actual shares of companies or actives. So some guys approached me and said, you know, there is this new technology that I heard about. People are using it instead of money, but we all know that money came from real actives, gold in this case. So can we do it? Like, can we use those things to trade outside of the officially regulated markets? So people were willing to trade shares through blockchain.
So it's not about AI, it's more about politics.
Well, in that case it was, but AI is the same. Like, for example, I'm building artificial intelligence for the industry. I'm trying to guess when something in the factory will break. And to train those models, I need data. And here is the legal question here. Can I use data that I obtained? The customer pays a subscription to use my service, and he gets that service. He gets predictions. But while I'm gathering data to make a prediction, I also store that data and use it to further train my models. And is this legal? Currently it is. Oh, it's not forbidden. Yeah, this is considered private data. It's not data that belongs to a single person, but data that belongs to a company. And legally, there is no such thing as, we know what private data is. This is data referring to me as a person, but there is no private data that belongs to my company. If I can secure it, if I can host it without sharing it with anyone, then it's private. Otherwise, it's fair game. Well, to be honest, the moment you raise the question, you get a no, so you just don't ask. You take the data.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. And I got the question straight from the name of your presentation. And to finalize my picture after your presentation, I want to ask you what makes you better the product manager according to others?
Actually, the title got lost in translation. Is based on a hip hop song that exactly mocks how people are claiming to be better than others. This was my idea that, okay, you have a better brand, calling yourself agile product manager, which is really fancy nowadays, but it doesn't mean nothing. You're no better than a business analyst or a product owner. Every company has their own definition of those roles, and no matter what your current role is, you all do this. So you can start calling yourself whatever you like, as long as you have this capability.
So thank you very much. One more.